Greetings, I'm Professor K, and in this short video presentation, we're going to see how we go about creating a virtual install of Server 2019 Core using VirtualBox. For this demonstration, I'll be using VirtualBox 6.0.4, which is the latest version that I can find. It doesn't really make any difference which version of VirtualBox you're using. It's pretty intuitive. You just got to go up and just follow along. Once you click that new button, you get a wizard. You can just start installing. So I'm going to put this inside of my Server 2019 group. So I've selected the group, Server 2019. And up here, you see this new button. Go ahead and click on that, and that's going to start the Create a Virtual Machine wizard. Give your virtual machine a user-friendly name. You can change the location of where you're going to save these virtual disks that you're creating, or you can leave it as the default. The type, we're going to pull this down. We're going to select Microsoft Windows. From here, for the version, we're going to pull that down. We're going to go all the way down to Windows 2016 64-bit, as there is currently no option for Server 2019. Go ahead and click Next. Go ahead and leave the default for the RAM at 2048 megabytes. Click Next. Go ahead and accept the default for Create a Virtual Hard Disk Now. Click Create. Go ahead and accept the default for the type of hard disk that you're going to create, VDI. Click Next. Go ahead and leave the default for dynamically allocated. Click Next. Save the default for the 50 gigabyte that's allocated for your dynamic hard disk, and then click Create. Our virtual disk is now created. Now we have to install the operating system. So with that virtual disk created, Server 2019 Core, I'm going to go up here and click on the Start button. This next window may end up down here at your taskbar, so make sure you look for it if it doesn't start up right away. Now for this step of the installation, we're going to have to browse on over to where we have that ISO image that we downloaded for our Server 2019. I have browsed over to the download location where I saved my ISO image for Server 2019. I'm just going to double click it. And now I'm going to click the Start button. That begins the installation of Server 2019. And it installs just like any other version of Windows Server. You get pretty much the same default GUI setup that you would get with Server 2012 or Server 2016. So on this first screen, we're just going to go ahead and click Next. And now we're going to click the Install button. So here's the change that you're going to have to take note of. Windows Server 2016 and Windows Server 2019, their new designation for the installation of Core is called the Standard Evaluation. The full desktop version is called Desktop Experience. So let's go ahead and select the first option, which is Windows Server 2019 Standard Edition, and let's click Next. On this next screen, go ahead and accept the licensing agreement. Click Next. I'm going to go ahead and click on Custom. And now I'm just going to click Next. Now it's going to begin the installation or the copying of the Windows files over to this virtual disk. And when this is done, it's going to reboot. Then we're going to come up and we're going to be able to insert our password, and then we'll be able to log on to our new fresh installation of Server 2019 Core. We're installing updates. It's going to finish up, and then it's going to restart. Then it's going to come up, and it's going to ask us to change our administrator password. And we'll do that in just a moment. And Windows is restarting. We're going to go ahead and give it a little help. Because of the smaller surface that Server Core takes up, we're going to get a command prompt here very quickly. And that's one of the benefits of having Server Core, is that it's a much smaller package, it's much quicker, and it reboots much faster. When you're prompted to press any key to boot from the CD or the DVD, do not press any key. Just let it time out and boot on its own, and you won't have any problems. If you do press a key, all you're going to do is just restart the installation process from the start. And we are now up to the command prompt. So on this first screen, we're going to change the administrator's password. So we're going to go ahead and just say OK. And now it wants us to type in our new password, and then we'll type it in again to confirm. To get down to the confirm password line, just use your tab key. Once you have your password typed in twice, go ahead and hit enter. Once you're notified that the password has been changed, just go ahead and hit OK. Now if you get stuck here, just hit your escape key one time and then come back and hit enter. And now we're at our actual command prompt. So the next thing we're going to want to do is install the guest editions for VirtualBox. So let's go up to Device, and here you can insert the guest editions CD image. Go ahead and do that. So the next thing you're going to want to do is go to the drive. So we're going to move from the C drive over to the drive to where that virtual CD-ROM is located, and that's going to be D:, just like that. Now you're going to type in dir, and that's going to list all the contents that are currently inside of this virtual CD-ROM. So we've changed drive over to the D drive, we've done a dir, and now we're looking at the contents. And what we want to launch here is the VBox Windows Editions.exe. We're going to go ahead and type that in right here at the line. So I've typed in the executable that I want to launch from that virtual DVD drive, and I'm going to go ahead and just hit enter. And that launches the wizard that we need to install the VirtualBox guest editions inside of our core edition for Server 2019. Go ahead and click next, and you can just accept all the defaults, run right through the wizard. When you're prompted to install any additional drivers, go ahead and install. When you're prompted to reboot, go ahead and reboot now. So we're back up and running after installing the VirtualBox guest editions. Now we're going to see how we go about navigating our way around inside of the server core using the command prompt. There is a utility that is available inside of Windows. It's called the System Configuration Utility, or sconfig, and that's what we're going to be using to navigate our way through the different parts of the server core that we need to configure. So let's go ahead and type in sconfig. I'm going to hit enter, and that's going to start the System Configuration Utility. So this allows you to do such things as moving from a work group and joining the domain. We can change the computer name. It gives you some information about whether or not the remote management is currently enabled or not, and it currently is. Windows Update settings, you can see that. You can also get into your network settings. You can change the date and time. Windows activation. You can log off as the user, restart the server, shut down the server, or exit to a command line. You can do all these things. So let's start off by just doing some of the simple stuff. And let's go ahead and just rename this computer. So you see the options have a number. So pick the option that you want to use and go down here at the bottom and just type it in. Hit enter. And now you can change the name. And I'm going to call this just real simply Server Core. Just like that. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. And it says you must restart your computer to apply these settings. Restart now. I'll go ahead and say no. And we're back to the main menu. Now at this time you can go ahead and restart, or you can log off. You can do whatever you want to do. But let's take a short tour of some of the things that you're going to become familiar with as you go through this server core portion of the course. The primary thing that you need to be worried about is your network settings. So let's take a look at that. Now right now, currently, you're using DHCP, and you're picking up your IP address information from the VirtualBox DHCP server. That's where you're getting it from. And if you go up here and we go to Machine and we go to Settings, you'll see that your network is currently set to NAT. Now we want to go ahead and set that to be using host-only adapter. We don't need to be going out to the internet, but we do need to be able to communicate with our full install of Server 2019 and our client Windows 10. So let's make sure that all three of those machines are using the host-only adapter. The other thing is you don't want these machines updating from Microsoft because you don't have enough hard drive space on your host machine to handle it. All right, so let's just go ahead and say OK to that, and now those settings have changed. So now we can go ahead and exit back over to our command prompt, and let's see what kind of an IP configuration we have. So I'm going to type in 15. I'll hit enter, and we're back to the prompt. Now I can type in ipconfig, like so, hit enter, and you'll see that I'm picking up a 192 address. 192.168.56.105. Now this, again, is the DHCP address that's being handed out to me by my VirtualBox. Later on, when I go back into the sconfig utility and I go into the network settings, I will then change over from using DHCP to using a static IP configuration so that I can communicate with my main server DC1. As I explained to you earlier in the menu for the sconfig utility, and let's just go back in there and review that real quick. We have the option here, starting with option number 12, to either log off as the user, restart the server, or shut down the server. So that's one way that you can do all that. But you can also use the command prompt if that's what you want to use. And that's real easy if we use the shutdown command. So let's just type in 15, go back to the prompt. Now if I type in shutdown, just like that, I give it a space, a -R, I can restart. If I want to shut down, I give it a -S. If it prompts you for a time, just type in 0. We'll go ahead and try this. So I'm going to go ahead and type in -R. I'm going to hit enter, and it's going to come up and tell me that the machine is going to shut down, but actually it's going to restart. I'm going to go ahead and close this, and it says in less than a minute. So it's closing out all the services. It's removing anything that it needs to disconnect from before it shuts down so that we don't corrupt any of the files or any of the applications that might be running. So my server core has restarted and is coming back up. We'll log back in through the prompt, and I'll show you how we're going to do that. So this is the default message you're going to get. Now if this was a physical installation, we would use our keyboard and we would just press Control-Alt-Delete. But we're inside of VirtualBox, so let's go to the keyboard underneath the input option and let's select Insert Control-Alt-Delete. Now it wants my password. I'll hit enter and it says welcome, and now we're back at the prompt. Now again, we can type in the sconfig utility, or we can use the command prompt to continue on with working inside of our server core. In another lab, we'll see how we go about preparing server core for joining our server 2019 domain. But for right now, we can go ahead and just shut down and be done with it. So I'm going to go ahead and just type in shutdown -S. Notice I did give it a space between shutdown and the -S. I'll hit enter. It's going to come up and it's going to tell me it's going to shut down in less than a minute. I'm going to say close that out, and we're all done. So that's going to conclude this short video presentation on how we go about installing server core for server 2019. Now if you have any questions or you have any concerns about anything that was shown in the lab or in this short video presentation, please do not hesitate to reach out and contact your instructor, and I'll see you in my next video.